she stepped up as my wife and handled that. And there's been many times where I've been at my lowest, and she's always been the strongest to get me back up to like, get back out there. You gotta get back out there and do what you do. Don't worry about what's happening over here. I'm gonna handle that.
After 27 years of marriage, the world is witnessing what few thought possible. Shantae Bruce, wife, manager, and architect of Snoop Dogg's modern empire, is walking out. And it's happening just as his name resurfaces in the long-dormant investigation surrounding Shocker's 1996 tragedy in Las Vegas. The timing, according to multiple insiders, is no coincidence. They say Shantae is not merely ending a marriage. She's cutting the final tie before the fallout begins. We know Shantae has been more than a spouse. In June 2021, she was officially appointed as the manager of Snoop's brand, a role that gave her control over multi-million-dollar partnerships in spirits, television, gaming, and the global market for legalized substances. For 2 decades, she quietly signed off on the deals that transformed Calvin Bruce from a rapper into a corporate institution. Yet now, as whispers of arrest warrants and financial probes circle back to his name, Shantae has reportedly begun preparing divorce papers. Those close to her describe it as an act of self-protection, a step taken while the house is still standing.
Well, she just a strong black woman off the tippy. You know what I mean?
We can't ignore how precisely the timelines overlap. Reports about Shantae consulting family attorneys first surfaced in late summer, the same period Shug's remarks went viral. By September, legal analysts were revisiting court transcripts from the 90s, reminding the public that Snoop's earlier trial for a separate case had ended in acquittal only after a violent confrontation tied to his security team. To industry veterans, it looked like the past circling back at the worst possible moment. What makes Shandy's silence so powerful is her history. She isn't a celebrity chasing fame. She built her husband's business foundation. When Snoop said she was his final gut check, he wasn't exaggerating. She oversaw endorsement contracts, touring logistics, and licensing deals. She even controlled the Broadus collection, their family scarf line inspired by their daughter's health struggles. Every brand carrying the Dogg name ran through her desk. If federal investigators start tracing financial flows around Death Row's rebranded assets, and if any link between those accounts and the Shocker inquiry is proven, Shantae could be exposed legally. Stepping away now could save her career and reputation.
Snoop Dogg has never been faithful to Shantae, ever.
Their love story once felt untouchable. They met as teenagers at Long Beach Polytechnic High School, danced at prom, and married at the Ritz-Carlton in Marina del Rey in June 1997. In 2008, he surprised her with a vow renewal at Charlie Wilson's ranch, attended by 200 family and friends. On paper, it was the perfect hip-hop fairy tale. The loyal wife who endured fame's chaos and raised 3 children while her husband built an empire. Yet, behind the photos, cracks were showing early. In 2007, Snoop admitted that success had gone to his head, saying he was willing to give up what I had at home before realizing what was irreplaceable. Those words read differently now, especially as new reports claim Shantae has privately told associates she's done protecting his mess. We've seen the pattern before. Loyalty rewarded with humiliation. For decades, Shantae ignored gossip, stood by him during trials, and even became his official manager when the industry celebrated her as a model of perseverance. But loyalty has a limit. Friends close to the Briss family describe her mood in recent months as businesslike, not bitter. She's allegedly moved out of their main LA residence, leaving Snoop surrounded by staff and publicists trying to manage what one associate called a crisis of credibility.
And good thing he didn't, because even though we was friends, but if pays you, I got a bullet into my skull. And one of the best friends I ever had in life is Pac.
Meanwhile, the backdrop is getting darker. Former Outlaws member Napoleon has reignited a long-buried narrative, alleging that Snoop was jealous of Shocker's success during their death row years and that tension between them exploded just weeks before the shooting. In interviews, Napoleon claims that Snoop's decision to express admiration for bad boy artists while Shocker and Shu were waging open war with them felt like betrayal inside the label. According to insiders, Shug's recent podcast comments drew directly from those old riffs, hinting that what looked like rivalry might have been something much deeper.
The turmoil and the stuff that I put her through, in my journey on becoming successful, because I had no understanding of what I was doing her, how I was hurting her.
For investigators revisiting the Shocker case, Snoop's proximity to both camps, death row on one side and friendly ties with New York producers on the other, has always raised questions. Now, with new statements suggesting there were unresolved conflicts, the focus has shifted again. Online sleuths are already pointing to the sudden distancing by Shantae as proof that she knows something. Her representatives have declined to comment, but entertainment lawyers agree that her withdrawal could be a legal maneuver designed to separate personal assets before any potential charges. It's a stunning reversal for a couple that celebrated their 27th anniversary in June 2024. That same month, Snoop posted throwback photos calling Shantae the good to my bad. Less than a year later, she's reportedly hiring a crisis PR firm. It's as if the empire they built together, the reality shows, the business lines, the carefully curated image of family unity, is collapsing under the weight of rumors that go far beyond infidelity. People who have worked with Snoop describe a shift in tone around him. Once relaxed and humorous, he's said to be closed off since the new allegations resurfaced. He has avoided direct responses to Suge Knight's claims, calling them noise. But privately, colleagues say he's frustrated and worried. The timing couldn't be worse. His role on national television shows, his streaming investments, and his stake in the revived Death Row Records all depend on a stable reputation. Any implication that he withheld information about Shocker's last night could destroy decades of brand building. Then,
the few like if we really dig, I believe we're gonna find probably 3 or 4 dudes over the years that she had long-term side piece.
Even within the entertainment community, whispers are growing louder. Some remember that Snoop was one of the last people to see Shocker alive, visiting him in the hospital before fainting at the sight of his condition. Others recall the tension aboard that flight from New York when Shocker reportedly confronted him for expressing admiration toward his rivals. SH's words he is explaining to do may sound like a passing comment, but to those who lived through that era, it feels like a loaded accusation, one that could reopen everything. And just days after that episode aired, talk of divorce began spreading through entertainment circles. The pattern was too clean to ignore. Shantae stepping back, lawyers in motion, old lawsuits revisited, Suge Knight hinting at unfinished business. The coincidences form a line that points to something larger than a marital split. As we trace these overlapping timelines, the question no one can yet answer begins to take shape. Is Shantae Briss leaving the man she built or escaping the man she finally sees for what he truly is? When you get to be the age that we at, and you get to become as successful as we are, you have to start doing some things that matter for the future. If the rumors are true, this divorce isn't about love, it's about survival. We can see how the timing aligns too neatly to dismiss. Just when Snoop Dogg seemed to have rewritten his legacy, taking full ownership of Death Row Records in 2022, the ghosts of that label came back to haunt him. What was supposed to be a victory lap, reclaiming the empire that launched his career, has now become the very reason people are whispering his name alongside words like investigation and reopening. When he announced the acquisition, Snoop called it a full circle moment, praising Suge Knight as a real one and saying that forgiveness was part of his growth. But now those statements read differently because as Shu himself starts pointing fingers back at him from behind bars, every kind word looks less like closure and more like foreshadowing. Even the people who once defended him are rethinking old stories. Outlaws member Napoleon recently claimed that Snoop was jealous of Shocker's rise, that he tried to dim his light when Shocker joined Death Row and stole the spotlight. At first, that sounded like an old grudge resurfacing, the kind of talk that floats around any record label with history. But Suge Knight's tone on his Collect Call podcast has made it harder to ignore. When he said Snoop has explaining to do about what happened in 1996, it wasn't framed as speculation. It was a warning. And those who know Suge's style understand he doesn't speak unless he means to send a message.
When you get to be the age that we at and you get to become as successful as we are, you have to start doing some things that matter for the future.
Meanwhile, the silence around Snoop's home life is deafening. Shantae Briss, the woman who once handled every major contract under Boss Lady Entertainment, has been missing from his public appearances. We used to see them side by side, red carpets, brand launches, television events. They smiled together at the Gladiator 2 premiere in LA just last year, still projecting that image of unbreakable partnership. Now she's gone. Her absence at recent industry functions hasn't gone unnoticed. The same PR insiders who once booked them as a power couple say her name has quietly disappeared from teen emails. Sources close to the family whisper that Shantae is already cutting legal ties, meeting with financial advisors to separate shared assets, and revising her management filings to limit liability. They say she's ensuring that if investigators start digging into old death row accounts or new streaming profits, none of that trail leads back to her. One associate compared her move to a chess played from the wives who stayed too long. After watching the collapses of high-profile moguls like Diddy, who now faces a conviction that reshaped the music world, Shantae reportedly refuses to be the next woman seen walking into a courtroom beside a husband in trouble.
So we made the business decision to be cool with each other, because I don't hate him, and he don't hate me.
The parallels are striking. Diddy's arrest, his empire shattered, his family's humiliation. It showed everyone in the industry how fast decades of success can vanish once law enforcement steps in. So when Suge Knight names Snoop publicly, and when federal agents are said to be re-examining pieces of the 1996 Las Vegas file, the question becomes obvious. Could they really reopen what many believed was a closed chapter? No one is confirming, but multiple sources inside the entertainment legal community say that with Death Row back in active business, every past contract connected to the label automatically falls under renewed compliance review. And that means any whisper of criminal association, no matter how old, gets another look. We've also learned that Snoop's new ownership of Death Row might have inadvertently revived old tensions between former associates. By relaunching the label in its catalog, he reawakened financial disputes about royalties and creative rights from the 90s. Several producers who worked under the original Death Row banner are now reportedly being contacted by lawyers. Some of them have hinted online that they've been asked for statements. None have named the agency involved, but the timing coincides with Suge's podcast surge and a spike in public speculation about what really went on after Shocker's last performance.
That boy life is dangerous. His life isn't, he's just not dangerous with the they said he was doing, but he's in danger. He knows too much.
Industry reaction has been split. Younger artists, the ones who grew up idolizing Snoop as hip-hop's friendly uncle, are stunned. Older insiders aren't. They remember the original chaos, the tension between Suge, Dre, Snoop, and Shocker, and how quickly alliances turned into accusations. To them, this feels like history repeating itself. Only this time, the stakes are higher. Snoop's global partnerships, from television to streaming to product lines, depend entirely on his public image as a reformed icon. Any credible connection to the violence of the 90s could bring that entire structure down. As for Shantae, those who know her describe her as calm but distant. She's reportedly focusing on her memoir, Paid the Cost to be the Boss Lady, a title that now sounds like a message of its own. Her team refuses to confirm whether she's moving forward with divorce paperwork, but the legal insiders we've spoken with say it's only a matter of timing. If Snoop's situation turns volatile, she'll be ready financially and publicly to step away without a trace. It's the same playbook followed by partners of fallen moguls who saw the storm coming before anyone else. She's not just leaving him. She knows everything. For over 2 decades, Shantae managed every account, signature, and business tie that kept the Snoop Dogg empire standing. She controlled publishing rights, handled payouts, and approved sponsorship deals that moved millions of dollars through multiple companies. When Snoop expanded into spirits, streaming, and merchandising, her name appeared quietly in the filings as the executive of record. If investigators ever start tracing money connected to the old Death Row network, Shanty's knowledge of where each dollar went could become the most valuable and dangerous asset in the room.
Well, they can't drop him like it's hot. Snoop Dogg is speaking out about LGBTQ content in kids' movies.
It's not that I want to become Snoop Dogg on a racetrack. I want to bury Snoop Dogg and become Snoop Lion. We can't overlook the larger pattern forming with Diddy's conviction, Suge Knight's allegations, and the renewed scrutiny over the old Death Row circle. The hip-hop elite is facing a reckoning unlike anything since the early 2000s. Everyone thought the Shocker story was buried for good. But if Suge Knight's claims hold even a fragment of truth, and if Shantae Briss is truly preparing her exit, Snoop Dogg cool, DB's standing on the edge of the same collapse that already consumed his peers. And if that's the case, her divorce won't just be personal. It will be the first signal that his empire is about to fracture from the inside. What do we think? Is this the final unraveling of the Dogfather's carefully built legacy, or just another storm he'll charm his way through? Tell us what you believe in the comments, because this story isn't done. Not by a long shot. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your minds curious. The truth in Hollywood always arrives later than the headlines.